for taking the time out of your schedules to be with us tonight. My name is Jennifer Donabedian, and I am the Administrative Services Manager with Groveland Community Services District. We have a lot of information to cover this evening. So I'd like to begin by briefly outlining the structure of tonight's meeting to help ensure we have a smooth and productive process. We will start with 3 presentations that will take approximately an hour. The first presentation will be from GCSD General Manager Pete Campa, who will discuss the administration and operation of the Groveland Fire Department. The second presentation will be from Chief Cashy and Chief Gorham with CAL FIRE, who will discuss the Groveland Fire Department structure, call volume, and resource response scenarios. The final presentation will be from John Kiefer with Kiefer's Insurance Agency, who will discuss how fire protection services can impact homeowners' insurance availability and cost. To keep the presentations moving, we will not be taking questions during the presentations. We will have a 30-minute public question and answer period after the presentations conclude. If you do not feel comfortable asking your question publicly, we have provided paper and pens in the back of the room, which I don't know over there now, okay? For you to write down your question. I will collect those before we begin the Q&A. After the public Q&A concludes, our 3 presenters will be available at tables around the room. The final 30 minutes of the meeting will allow you to ask questions one-on-one with either General Manager Pete Campa, Chief Cashy or Chief Gorham, or Mr. Kiefer. And with that said, I will now turn the microphone over to GCSD General Manager Pete Campa.
You guys are really lucky. The writing is too small for me to read. So, good evening, and this is maybe triple the turnout that we expected, and it's very much appreciated for you to take the time out to be here to learn about the fire department, if you don't already know, and hopefully to learn more. We've got a few takeaways that we really want to make sure that we get across to everyone, because fire services are just of paramount importance for every aspect of what we do. So GCSD, if you don't know it, was formed by the voters. We were actually formed in 1953, and we provided a number of services. The most critical at this point in time for discussion and for consideration is the fire services. When someone in Groveland calls 911, the first thing you expect and need and want is someone showing up every day, any day, 24/7, 365. And that's a responsibility that we have as GCSD to manage our affairs, to make sure that that happens, to make sure that we have the services available, and to communicate with you any needs that might be in place for the fire department and any issues that we're having. It's an extremely important service, and we're all very dedicated to getting to that point where the fire services are stable forever. So and that's one thing that's really important as part of this, is that fire services don't go away. I can't imagine the need for AI or anything else to take over the need for a fire department. We have that's something that lives on in this community to protect life and property for the foreseeable future, at least. We pulled these folks together today. Jennifer's talked about what we're going to present, but we're trying to do this in order and keep to the program. I'm not always the best at that, but the main thing is that I want to explain the fire services in Groveland today. And there's a lot of confusion about it, because you see a red truck, you see a green truck, you see our fire truck. People don't really know where that engine is coming from. The one thing that's paramount importance for everyone to understand is that the GCSD fire engine 781, the red truck that says GCSD and CAL FIRE on it, is the only.
Speak up, please, or turn it up.
Wow.
That's better.
I'll snuggle up to it here. Okay. I didn't realize, I thank you very much because I didn't know the sound was so loud in the back.
You can turn on the speakers up in here. These are not working.
Ooh. What's that? Oh, okay. Give us just a few seconds here. Coffee, I promise. Actually, it's GCSD water.
Yeah, good stuff.
So I will speak as loud as I can for now. It looks like we're starting to get some movement in the back of the room there. That's all right. Yes. No. We're getting there. Test, 1, 2, test. Give me some fingers in the back of the, there we go. All right, not giving me the finger, but some fingers. All right, we got this. So, the one thing the most important point that I was getting at is the fact that your tax dollars in Groveland fund the Groveland Fire Department, fund the GCSD fire engine and its staff that is on that engine. That is the only engine in this area that's dedicated to saving life and property. That doesn't mean that the others don't. It just means that that's the only one that we control, and that is the cherished gem of what we want to save. Okay, we have the GCSD engine that is, again, it's the only one that's under local control, and it's the only one that is dedicated to providing that service. As long as GCSD exists, or as long as the fire department exists, that's what that's for. I'm sorry, I can't even read that. We provide the staffing for that engine through what's called a cooperative agreement with CAL FIRE. Schedule A agreement, cooperative agreement, however you want to term it. But we provide, CAL FIRE provides the staffing under contract, and they maintain a minimum number of 2 people on that engine 24/7, 365. It takes more people than 2 when you have vacations and sick and time off and all of that. And so there's more people that back that up and rotate in, but there's 2 people always on that engine. And again, they wear a CAL FIRE uniform, but they're paid by your tax dollars through the GCSD budget. There are other departments and stations that provide services here, and we've got our county fire chief, as well as your fire chief, your Groveland fire chief here to talk about that and how that all works. But we do have the Merrill Road station, that's a CAL FIRE station, dedicated to its purpose. And the other thing that's important to understand is that when you see that white fire engine, that is the county's fire engine, and they are providing that under a co-location agreement. They have that engine in our station under an agreement to have that staffed engine available to respond to calls outside of the GCSD boundaries. Because we collect the tax dollars in the GCSD boundaries, the property tax, that has to be our focus, is in the boundaries. Now, we do provide services outside the boundaries when it's needed. As you can imagine, when you fight a fire, there's a lot of people that are involved. So, with our primary focus being inside, the county, after a lot of effort and work, has agreed to provide that engine. Now, it's only there on a year-to-year basis, and it's only funded currently until the end of 2027, okay? And what that allows is if there's a call out at the resorts, any of the resorts that are out of the boundaries, Firefall is out of the boundaries, Rush Creek, Evergreen Lodge. If a call comes up out there, that's supposed to be the first engine that goes out to the county's engine, leaving the GCSD engine here. And so I've covered that as far as the county. So the challenge that we have today is that when you call 911, you expect that engine to roll. You expect somebody to show up. And time is of the essence. It's absolutely critical in a medical emergency that you're there in minutes. And many times the first person you see is somebody rolling up on a fire truck. You would think an ambulance or something else might be there, but in reality, the fire department is there and ready and provides service immediately when that alarm goes off. And so in our community, we are, and our fire professionals will give more information on this, we are alone on the Highway 120 corridor. Highway 108 has a lot more stations up and down that are staffed to be able to respond. I'm not saying they have it great, but in Groveland, we really have the one station that's the most important. Like many rural communities, we're struggling with funding. We're struggling with financing expensive equipment. And we've got some long-term challenges. We've got a very small population, basically, and we have most of the town in the room tonight. We have a very small population base when you compare us to an urban area. They might have a fire truck every 4 to 7 minutes from you. Here, to try to do that, it would take many stations and many people that we just couldn't afford, and that there's just not a revenue source to make that happen. And that's going on up and down the foothills. So, and we rely, I'll talk more about this in a minute, but we rely almost entirely on the property tax money that's on your property tax bill. It goes to the state, it goes to the county, it comes back to us, a portion of the 1%. And that's really all we have to be able to fund the fire department. I've got my long-term vision straight, because we've got a screen all the way back there. So the primary thing is starting a community conversation, because it is extremely impossible with social media right now to talk about anything and make sure that real word gets out there to everyone. By the time it gets to the end, you remember the telephone game, that description of the GCSD Fire Department, what's going on, has completely changed. So starting a community conversation, getting people involved. Our office is right down the street, right down the trail, whatever you want to call it. And we're open for conversations at any time. This is the most important thing we're dealing with. And we'd like to have you understand the issue, understand how the department's structured, understand the services that we provide and how we're funded, and then also what potentially how the fire station itself and having the staff fire station affects your insurance. So to give you a little background that you may not know, some of you have been here a while and probably know this very well, but although the district was formed in 1953 and could provide fire protection services, it wasn't until 1973 that we took over the operation of the fire department, the volunteer fire company at the time. So in 1973, UCSD had an active fire department, and what happened during the time right around the turn of 2000 to 2003, 2005, the state adopted new regulations that completely changed the way that volunteer fire services worked. And our staff here will talk a little bit more, the professional firefighters, about what happened there. But the number of volunteers started to decline. Not so much that, but just their ability to be able to respond. They were working off the hill, and during the day we may not have people. And so in June of 2002, there was a fire suppression assessment that was put to the voters to be able to provide for full-time staffing, some full-time staff, and some reserve firefighters, and still had some volunteers at the time. So that assessment came into place and had a 10-year sunset. So it by June of 2012, that had sunsetted, and the question about continued funding was put on the ballot. Instead of it being an assessment, it was a special tax on the ballot, and it failed. So when that failed in 2012, and I'm hearing discussion from people that not this room, but another room was completely packed with people to have a conversation about that. The district could no longer afford its own fire department. You had paid fire chiefs, you had assistant chiefs, you had reserves, you had volunteers, you had additional staffing, you had administrative staff dedicated to the fire department that were all receiving CalPERS retirement, medical benefits, and things that were costing over $1 million at the time. And the district did not have the money to be able to fund that. The district worked with the county and CAL FIRE and was able to get into an agreement for a minimum level of staffing from CAL FIRE at 2 people on the engine 24/7 for an amount of money that we had to be able to do it. And that happened in 2012, and we've maintained that arrangement since that time. So that's how that came about. And that was a huge transition for the community, but I'll tell you, as I'll talk more about, this relationship with CAL FIRE has been fantastic. Sorry, it takes me forever. So obviously, why does fire protection matter? It's critical for life safety. That's the one of the big things is that time is of the essence. Response times must be really fast and consistent. When you make a call, you want to count on someone being there, and that's of utmost importance for life safety. The emergency medical response, that happens to be the majority of our calls. You'll see some details on that in a minute. And for emergency medical response, whether it's a heart attack, a stroke, an overdose, a vehicle accident, whatever it is, you don't want to wait for people, and you want it to be reliable. The last thing we want to do is have our resources committed somewhere else, and it takes 20 minutes to get there, even 15 minutes when someone is bleeding out or having a heart attack is too long. So we definitely take that seriously and plan to continue to provide that service. Wildfire response, huge. The last thing you want is to have your resources, not capable or having no resources to be able to deal with a small fire, brush pile that gets away, or whatever it is. Just a fire that happens, and if the wind is blowing, you have to admit, these guys have done an absolutely amazing job. The fire happens, they are there, they get it done. And we've been lucky enough to have the other backup resources to make it happen. But wildfire response is something that, even though they may not get many calls a year, maybe less than 10, that one, it's the difference between a fire and a community disaster. A small emergency response and a community disaster, if they can't get there quickly, get it in control so that resources can get there, other air and ground resources. Extremely important. Property, and that goes along with property protection as well. They try to keep the fire confined so that it doesn't spread to the wildfire, it doesn't get to other houses, and they've done a fantastic job. They have to be there, and it has to be staffed for them to be able to do that. And again, we're at the minimum staffing. And all of this, I don't even need to ask for a raise of hands how many people have had their insurance go up. Thank you, John. But yeah, it's not the insurance company's fault. They're the savior, hopefully. But the presence of a fire department, the presence of a staff fire department, and a water system are the things that affect your insurance cost, and it's extremely important. So before we talk about the finances, because that's where we are now, it's just really important that it takes a lot to keep the fire department operating. There is, you've got staffing, you've got insurance, you've got fuel, you've got buildings that have to function and be safe. You're housing the firefighters. You have to make sure the roll-up doors are going to come up, and and that their communication systems are going to work, and then that vehicle is not only going to get out of the bay, but it's going to roll to the site, and that when they turn the pumps on, that's going to push that water out and put the fire out. That is extremely important, and that's part of what GCSD does. We contract with CAL FIRE for the staff, but all other expenses, including that CAL FIRE contract, are covered by the funds, the property tax funds that GCSD receives. Every bit of the operating expense. And we CAL FIRE staff, but we pay for it. And then there's a small portion of the district administrative expense to administer all of the expenses and the contracts and everything that's associated with having the fire department. So you can see that the majority of the expenses to CAL FIRE staffing contract, and then we have, this is just based on our current year's budget, percentage for the general operating expense. We've got a very small percent for capital, and we have a small percentage for administration. There, you don't see anything in there for equipment replacement. If we had an apparatus go down today, a fire apparatus, they're very expensive, and we'll get into that in just a second. So now that we've talked a little bit about the expenses, we've got to talk about the revenue. And you can see that almost the entire amount is covered by what's called ad valorem property taxes or property taxes. Ad valorem taxes or property taxes. That's the amount that you pay that goes to the state, to the county, and to us, a percentage of it. That was fixed in the 1970s with Prop 13. Okay, so Prop 13 happened, and from there was an assembly bill that said, okay, what you get today is what you get into the future, increased by 2%. And so that's what the fire department has been living on. And so that's the total amount of revenue. The other small piece of the revenue, every once in a while, CAL FIRE says, hey, can you rent us your extra fire truck to go on a state fire somewhere? And then they've got a rate that they reimburse us for that vehicle. The first year we purchased it, it was a Type 3 engine. It was a used CAL FIRE engine. We paid $12,000. The first year we billed out about $60,000, I think it was. A good chunk of money. So I mean, it was a worthwhile investment, but it's another piece of equipment that we have to maintain. And some years it'll be zero revenue from it. Other years it'll be, I think, around 100,000 was the maximum that we received. So pretty clear on the expenses and revenue. Pretty simple. Fire department of our budgets, this is the easiest one to explain. So this is the graph that was part of the handout. And I'll just go over the lines so that you know how to interpret it. I think it's hopefully laid out fairly simple. All we did in this graph is explain the relationship of the amount of property tax we receive to the cost of the CAL FIRE contract today and into the future. Okay? So the top line is the Schedule A contract with the CAL FIRE staffing contract. And right now, this is what we project at the end of the year. You guys, we're doing really good on our budget, but we budgeted that we were going to be negative, but we're actually going to be a little bit to the positive at the end of the year. That was giving us a little bit of cash in the bank for that red line, even though it's going the wrong way. If we didn't have that, if we didn't come in under budget, we wouldn't have that. But CAL FIRE has done a good job. And so that black line is the projected CAL FIRE costs. They'll address a little bit about what the changes are in that over the next 5 years. The green line is the property tax, and that increases by 2 to 3% when we have a lot of property turnovers and they're taken out of the Prop 13 protections. We get a little bit more. It's because the value goes up, where it might have been fixed at $150,000 for years. So that is the projected property tax revenue. So when you compare the two of those, there's a gap right off the bat. So what happens when you have more expense and you have revenue? You start to draw from your bank account. That's the red line. That's the cash that we have available, and we see that being depleted by the end of our fiscal year 28, so June of 2028. That's on the horizon. As I said, we're contracted with CAL FIRE for the minimum staffing. We can't reduce that amount. In fact, it's going to increase by mandate, and and it needs to. The revenue is property taxes. That is fixed by state law, under Prop 13. So you don't have a lot of room to maneuver. That's why we're having the initial conversation. A little more on that same topic, just looking specifically at this year, and for the past few years, the budgeted expenses have exceeded the budgeted revenue. And we knew we were going to draw down on that savings account, okay? However, the CAL FIRE contract, the total cost, because they tell us in advance what they think it's going to be if they're fully staffed with the right people in the right place, and we budget for that because it's happened before. They come in right on budget. In the last few years, we've been lucky enough that that number has come in lower than the budget. So we have, so in the slide you'll see it's got 1.6 million, that was our budget, with 1.475 in property tax. We're already having out just money to fund the staffing contract. That's a good number to understand. And just for your information, part of what we have passed out and have out is a QR code. We've implemented a new transparency module for all of the finances of the district, and it's really easy to click all the way down to the check level. You can see what checks we wrote for the fire department expenses by going to the website and checking that out. It's really important that we put that out there. So with that negativity, that happened, that negativity meaning negative balance, revenue less than expenses, that happens before we even put the fuel in the tank. So that's a big concern because that's what's driving that graph, the dip, as far as the money in the bank. And again, the fund balance has been used to fund that shortfall, and we have zero fund balance projected, 80,000. Zero fund balance projected at the end of fiscal year 28. We have limited revenue growth potential, that's at 2 to 3% on average. And the big thing right now is we don't have any money set aside for replacement of our big equipment like the fire engine. Used to be, in 2019 we had an estimate at about 750,000 plus equipment for that engine. Now it's 1.3 plus. Some of them are coming in at 1.6 million. Not only that, but it's 3 years out to manufacture those things. So if we placed an order today, by the time we got the new engine, our existing engine, this 2009, would be over 20 years old. And when you're driving a 20-year-old vehicle, that's good that you've maintained it to that point, but sometimes you might start to have trouble with it with the fire engine and all of its mechanics. It can be pretty difficult. So, the question always comes up, what has GCSD done? I talked about the revenue and expenses and some of the limitations on what we can do there. They're typically fixed by law, and also by contract with CAL FIRE. The first thing that we did was secure a county engine in Groveland. That sounds easy enough to ask the county, hey, you guys were responding outside of our boundaries to provide services all over in your responsibility area. Why don't you have a station out there? We had absolutely no traction for a long time. It took to the point where we actually got into litigation. I'm not saying the county's a bad guy. I'm just saying they just said, GCSD's going to respond. Oh, and the Forest Service, and CAL FIRE, and Mariposa, and Walmy County Fire, in all of the review of all the projects. So that was we pushed for the last few years really hard, and they did agree to they got grant funded, which runs out this month, but they did agree to fund it through the end of 2027, so in June 2027. I can tell you, pay attention to that, because if you've seen the Board of Supervisors meetings and what they've been considering and their either priority of fire protection and the fact that they got stations and things like that, they are still on the whole. We really need to be diligent to make sure that we have our voice heard. We need that engine in Groveland to keep the GCSD engine dedicated. That's so important. We have the evaluated other revenue options. There's not a whole lot available to us for fire protection services. We can, and we have just asked the county for money, but the response is always the same. No, you guys are providing it, we're all doing just fine, we're being cooperators with you and all of that. So that option hasn't worked out. We've turned over all other stones. We have adopted a policy that future development is going to support itself. When we have a new subdivision of subdivision property, residential or a new large commercial development, there will be a community facilities district tax levied as a condition of that development to make sure that the fire department, when the demand goes up, that we have funding in the future to expand the fire department. Okay? Has no impact on anybody today, but it's at some point you got to stop the bleeding and not just have everybody benefit from the resources that hasn't been paying into it. So that's a policy that the district board adopted to move forward with. That's in the form of development impact fees, and that would be to build a new station and buy a new engine, an additional engine, and staff it with fees and tax dollars again. Not for you, but just stopping the bleeding for the future. Grants, we've worked really hard. The department staff has just done a fantastic job of securing grants for replacement of tools and small equipment, technology, all of that. Typically 50% grant funded by either the state or federal government, but we have to have cash for the 50% match for that. They don't replace everything. We've applied for engines before. There's so much competition nationwide, it's been impossible to get funding for an engine. The last time we got funding for an engine was when we bought the one in 2009. But we will continue to apply and continue to put political pressure on to get that. Some of those grants have gone to, like I said, equipment, fuel reduction projects. The 250 acres that we get here has helped to protect the community, and we keep that maintained so that we've got low fire hazard directly in downtown. And then we've also funded the startup of the CERT, and that's been done. And there is zero balance budget, the intent, and what they've done so far is secure grant money and contributions to be able to fund their activities. They provide another 30 to 40 people in a volunteer capacity to assist the fire department, primarily in emergencies. And that is something that GCSD felt strongly about. Again, it's not a financial draw, but it's just things that we've done to try to support the fire department without taking on additional expense. We supported the county's Measure B. We joined in with them on a joint powers authority because we held off on doing our own measure because the countywide, county fire and all the other fire departments are struggling financially. So we understand that, and they're our partner. So we partnered with them on Measure B in support to secure funding, which would have helped us through this. Would have given us a significant amount of money to be able to, in sales tax, to be able to provide the services. That did not pass. In Groveland, we did get the highest percentage of support of any of the areas in the county, which was really pleasing to see, but it didn't pass, so that partnership was dissolved, the authority. We've considered fees for services, and we are continuing to look at those. The difficulty is you can only collect for certain things. Most people that you're collecting from, unless you're able to bill their insurance company, your medical or car, you can't get reimbursed. You can chase people from out of the area or out of the country, but you don't get paid. Sometimes you spend the money on a billing service, and just the money you get in covers the cost of that billing service. It's not going to fund the gap in firefighting. Briefly on the CAL FIRE partnership, and they'll talk more about it, is they have the most extensive resources probably in the country. When COVID went on and people were dropping like flies as far as being able to be in the workforce, we never had to worry about it because they have resources to draw from all over. We always had the staffing. When there are vacations, sick leave, emergencies, whatever, on existing staff, they bring other staff in to make sure we have that reliable minimum staffing. They also are the largest fire department in the country, and they have both the negotiating power on both sides to keep the costs in check, both from the union and from the state. And so our cost to contract with CAL FIRE is lower than having our own fire department. We don't have any long-term obligations with that. We just pay them the bill as it comes due. And historically, we've been able to manage that contract amount lower than the amount that we budget, which helped us get through to where we are today. Again, no pension. We don't have through that. They have the pension obligation and the workers' comp, and so that is that's a huge thing that keeps it under control. So, partnering with the CAL FIRE has provided us predictable, high-quality services that protect and maintain financial stability. It's been very predictable what the expenses would be. Again, can't hit it enough. Why this matters is for response times, liability service, wildfire readiness, homeowners insurance availability, and long-term sustainability services. That's our focus right now, given the draft, given the funding, giving our predictions for the future. So what we have done is that we have, we're planning for the future. And that's what we do. I think we can do it better than the county. We can do it locally. That's the one thing that is at the forefront of our thoughts all the time is making sure that the fire department is full, and we'll do everything we can to make it happen. We've engaged a third-party municipal finance consultant. They're evaluating the revenue flow, the future, the expenses. They're checking our numbers. They're making sure that they'll come up with a proposal on how we can balance that budget. And so that's going to be, I want to encourage people to be involved in the GCSD board meetings upcoming in both April and May, because I believe it's going to be on the agenda in both months. We get no attendance in the meetings. Not that that doesn't allow us to do business, but it's hard to get the word out straight from those meetings. And the board will be considering those items in both of those months. That report that comes from the consultant with recommendations. So that's an extremely important thing to know. And from there, I'm going to turn it over to our professional firefighters and Chief Groveland Fire Chief Nathan Gorham and Johnny Keefer.
Check. Hello and good evening. Can you hear me in the back okay? Yes. All right, great. Good evening. My name is Nathan Gorham, Assistant Chief of the Groveland Fire Department and CAL FIRE. On the other side of the room here is our Tuolumne County Calaveras Unit Chief and Groveland Fire Department Chief Nick Cashin. Thank you for coming to tonight's presentation. What we're going to discuss tonight is an overview of the Groveland Fire Department, the cooperative agreement with CAL FIRE, emergency call volume and response, the Tuolumne County automatic aid agreement, and a resource response scenario set. For the Groveland Fire Department overview, it was created by GCSD Board Action in 1973. Although the conversation began in December of 2012 about entering into a cooperative agreement with CAL FIRE, we formally took staffing of that contract on April 1st, 2013. The jurisdictional authority area is approximately 14.9 square miles, but we support responses outside the GCSD boundary, protecting over 4,500 residents and many more visitors through fire prevention, education, and emergency response. CAL FIRE has primary wildfire protection authority for the private lands in the state responsibility area. The United States Forest Service has primary wildfire protection authority for the federal lands in the federal responsibility area. So in terms of the fire department's historic staffing model, From 1973 to 2013, prior to us engaging in the cooperative agreement with Groveland, it was a combination staffing model where it melded both volunteer and paid staff. That was not sustainable, and the factors contributing to volunteer decline include the rising cost of living in California, increased training and certification requirements, employer support has declined, as well as an aging volunteer base. Volunteering now requires a near professional commitment and increased liability and administrative burdens. Consolidation and a shift toward career departments has been the primary drivers of that. Cooperative fire protection with CAL FIRE. The Groveland Community Services District currently has a cooperative agreement with CAL FIRE to provide fire protection services for the community via a Schedule A agreement, as has been discussed. As a full-service fire department, CAL FIRE responds to wildland fires, structure fires, floods, earthquakes, hazardous material spills, swift water rescues, civil disturbances, earthquakes, and medical emergencies of all kinds. Local governments can utilize this diversity and experience through their contracts and agreements with the department. CAL FIRE, through contractual cooperative agreements, provides full-service fire protection services to 32 of the state's 58 counties, 38 cities, 23 fire districts, and 40 special districts and service areas. These fire protection services are funded directly by local cooperators, benefiting the cooperator in cost savings, statewide resource availability, and surge capacity from surrounding CAL FIRE employees. So the question of why 3O staffing. So on November 1st, 2024, upon approval of the administration and Cal HR, CAL FIRE adopted a 66-hour work week, aligning with the approved Bargaining Unit 8 Memorandum of Understanding, shift patterns for Bargaining Unit 8 personnel, which are the personnel that are riding on the equipment, responding to the calls of service statewide, and specifically here in the Groveland area. All Schedule A agreements will conform to a 66-hour work week, which is consistent with MOU shift patterns beginning on November 1st, 2024. A minimum staffing level Schedule A agreements will be 2.0 minimum staffing based on a 3.0 staffing factor. Our planning efforts to accommodate higher daily minimum staffing levels in collaboration with our local government partners is ongoing to ensure an adequate rate of response. So the same conversation that's being had here tonight is happening statewide across all of our agreements in totality. So, direct you to the left side of the screen, which demonstrates a staffing level. In its simplest terms, this equates to how many personnel are riding on the apparatus per day, and how many positions that requires. On the right side is the staffing factor. So that's going to equate to the depth of coverage to maintain 3.0 staffing daily, effective 7 days a week. Hence, you're going to require 9 positions to fill the 3 seats throughout a 7-day week. Another reason of 3.0 staffing is the recommendations based on NFPA 17-10. I'll direct you mostly to the bottom paragraph where it talks about occupancy type of single-family dwelling deployments, specifically a structure fire in a residential family home. Requires a minimum of 16 members. The initial full alarm assignment to a structure fire in a typical 2,000 square foot, 2-story single-family dwelling, which are abundant in this area, without a basement and with no exposures, must provide for a minimum of 16 members. So it's going to equate back and tie into the safety of the responders and the personnel to be able to meet the mission based on what's encountered on scene. This slide is going to be a snapshot of the current agreement that CAL FIRE has with the Groveland Community Services District. As was mentioned, we're currently in a 5-year cooperative agreement where our intent is to phase in the 3.0 staffing in years 3, 4, and 5. So the current fiscal year we're in, 25-26, we currently have 2 fire captains and 4 engineers assigned for a total personnel of 6. It will remain the same for next fiscal year. Starting in fiscal year 27-28, we will add 1 engineer position. 28-29, we'll add an additional engineer position. And in the final fiscal year of the agreement, we would add a 3rd fire captain to bring that staffing factor up to 9 to provide a daily 3-0 staffing level. Snapshot here is of your emergency incident statistics based on the 2025 data for the responses. 540 incidents within GCSD's jurisdictional area. Of that, 350 of those calls were for medical assistance, which generally requires a single engine response. Had that been a medical with CPR, it would be a 2-engine response. 7 vegetation fires in the service area, 4 structure fires, 3 vehicle fires, 7 illegal debris burns, 22 hazardous materials or fire menace standby calls, 13 vehicle accidents, 81 public service assist, and 53 other call types not listed above. The Groveland Fire Department deployment standards. ECSD Resolution 27-2020, adopted on June 9, 2020, established a 14-minute response time 90% of the time. So 90% of the calls they went to, they needed to be there within 14 minutes or better. We're proud to report that in 2025, the average response time was 6 minutes and 36 seconds across the service area. When we reference the engine, the frontline engine 781 parked outside, if you want to take a look, after 2009 Pierce Contender, which means we're now entering its 17th year of service. Current mileage on that apparatus is over 101,000 miles. And the graph in the upper right corner will show you the maintenance costs. In 2023, $8,600. 2024, $15,600. 2025, $27,900. Exponential growth. It takes a lot to keep these things running and on the road. And I'd be remiss to not say that GCSD's fleet mechanics do a phenomenal job of maintaining their equipment. And as you can see in 2026, we're almost at what we spent in 2023 on maintenance, and we're only 3 months in. So why is the structured equipment replacement program critical to maintaining reliable service? It's about reliable emergency response, firefighter safety, financial stability, community protection. Without it, departments risk equipment failure, budget instability, and compromised service delivery. With it, they ensure consistent, dependable protection for the community they serve. Tuolumne County has an automatic aid agreement, which exists countywide. Participation is voluntary. Agreement is in the spirit of providing the closest emergency resource, regardless of the agency having jurisdiction. Some agencies have restrictions on response areas to ensure their area of jurisdiction is not drawn down below a reasonable limit. Other agencies have no restrictions. Here is a list of all the participating agencies, and it encompasses all 13 fire service providers that provide all-risk emergency response in Tuolumne County. They are all signatory to that agreement. In 2025, in reference to the automatic aid statistics, the graph on the right shows that the Groveland Community Services District Fire Department received automatic aid from the Tuolumne County Fire Department 95 times. And reminder, remember that these 2 engines are co-located. The white engine is for the county response, the red engine 781 is for the GCSD service area. The Tuolumne County Fire Department received automatic aid from the Groveland 31 times. So in determining these resource response scenarios, and these were created through our San Andreas Emergency Command Center. They are all hypothetical scenarios, so you may recognize locations, but these are not call types that were actually ran. These were just scenarios that we built for this presentation tonight. These are done utilizing the computer-aided dispatch system, which takes in the comprehensive quantitative data as well as GIS mapping programs to determine the most appropriate type, resource, and closest available to respond. So for this scenario, the agency having jurisdiction is the Groveland Fire Department. Location is the Twin Pines Apartments on Elder Lane with across the Highway 120. And the call type is a multifamily structure fire. When we talk about response plans, a response plan for a multifamily structure fire consists of one chief officer, one safety officer, 5 appropriate engines, and 3 water tenders. So the graph in the bottom is going to show you what you can expect and in what time frames resources would likely be arriving at scene. Your GCS engine, along with the co-located Tuolumne County Engine 631, would be there in approximately 1 minute and 50 seconds. Followed by the CAL FIRE engine off Merrill Road, engine 4466, would be there in 3 minutes and 15 seconds, approximately 1 minute and 25 seconds later. Next engine would be coming from MMU, which is the Madera, Mariposa, Merced unit of CAL FIRE out of the Coulterville Station, engine 4281. It would arrive in 23 minutes and 10 seconds. An additional 21 minutes and 20 seconds beyond the initial response. Followed by the second engine coming out of that MMU CAL FIRE house, engine 4291, with the same EPE. We aim to show you that when you call 911, it might not be the GCS engine that's coming to you. They could already be committed on a call. So we're going to go to the next available resource. Could be the Tuolumne County Fire Department engine 631. If they're committed, we may next go to the CAL FIRE engines on Merrill Road, providing they're there. But as was stated before, some of these agencies have different missions. CAL FIRE's mission is to suppress unwanted fire on state responsibility area. But through the spree of being a good cooperator, we agree to respond to all of these call types when available. Next scenario is also agency having jurisdiction is Groveland. Location is Breckenridge Road and Pine Mountain Drive, just down the street. Call type is a medical for a 61-year-old male fall from a ladder. This would typically be a 1-engine response. GCSD engine 781 would arrive in 6 minutes and 10 seconds. If they were to not be available, your next engine 4466, 7 minutes and 34 seconds. An additional minute 24. If they weren't available, the next suggested resource based on the computer-aided dispatch would be MMU engine 4281 coming out of Coulterville. So, as Pete Campa had mentioned, we really are kind of alone on the hill when it comes to fire services. So it's important to articulate that. And as you can see, MMU engine 4281 has a 27-minute and 30-second estimated time en route. Next one, also a GCS call. Location is on Wawona Drive at Merrill Road. Call type is a residential structure fire. So this requires a 4-engine response. First engine at scene, CAL FIRE TCU engine 4466 on Merrill Road, 2 minutes 44 seconds. Followed up by GCS engine 781, 3 minutes and 48 seconds. Along with Tuolumne County Fire Department engine 631, respectively, would get there 1 minute and 4 seconds after the first arriving engine. Followed by the MMU engine 4281 coming out of Coulterville, 21 minutes, 25 seconds. Agency having jurisdiction for this scenario is the Tuolumne County Fire Department. It's a passenger vehicle fire at Deer Flat Road and Ward's Ferry. ECU engine 4466 would be first at scene, providing they were in quarters and available. 4 minutes and 2 seconds. Followed by engine 631 from Tuolumne County Fire Department, 33 seconds later. Engine 781 as well, 33 seconds later. And TCU engine 4495, with a 29-minute, 55-second ETE beyond the initial arriving resources. And that resource from that scenario would be coming out of the CAL FIRE Standard Station off Tuolumne Road. Next, we have a vehicle accident with extrication at Highway 120 and Highway 49. Agency having jurisdiction is the Tuolumne County Fire Department. So this one, Highway 120 and 49 down in the Moccasin area. I'm certain many of you drive by here often. Providing we got a response from the lone volunteer, the Tuolumne County Fire Department Station 61, they would be there in 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Next, we have the engine off of the CAL FIRE Station on Merrill Road, 10 minutes and 15 seconds. And then we would move further down the street to the Groveland Station 78, where we would next get engine 631 or 781 if available, with an 11-minute and 40-second ETE. We're almost done with the response scenario, so bear with me. Next, we have a medical aid, CPR in progress, which requires 2 engine response. Agency having jurisdiction is Tuolumne County Fire Department, and it's at Old Priest and Priest Coulterville Road. Your TCU engine 4466 off Merrill Road would be first at scene in 4 minutes and 44 seconds, followed by engine 631 with a 6-minute and 8-second ETE. And in this scenario, engine 781 was not available. They were committed on another call. But we would then become reliant to go further to MMU engine 4281 out of the Coulterville station. 15 minutes and 19 seconds for a CPR response. We shared recently that there's going to be some VSTO grant Cal OES CPR hands-only classes that will be occurring here later this month. So I would urge folks to get involved and participate in that and learn a skill that may help yourself, your family, your neighbor. For this scenario, we have a vegetation fire in the Groveland Fire Department's jurisdiction in Ferretti Road, Voitano. ECS engine 781 would take 9 minutes and 49 seconds to travel to get to that area, along with engine 631, followed by CAL FIRE TCU engine 4466 with 11-minute and 14-second ETA, a minute and a half slower. About the time you were getting those first 3 engines at scene, hopefully the aircraft were available at Columbia and that they're heading out as well. A typical vegetation fire response in the summertime is going to include 2 of the agency having jurisdiction or local government resources, so respectively it would be your 631, 781, followed by a CAL FIRE chief officer, 8 fire engines, a safety officer, 2 crews, a dozer, and then the full aircraft order consisting of an air attack, 2 air tankers, and 1 Type 1 helicopter. We're done with the scenarios. So with that, each month, your staff at the Groveland Fire Department Station 78 compile the data of the events, how many calls they ran, what training they did, what public engagement or interaction was had. Did they host field trips? Did they go to the local schools? Did Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts come by the station? It's an endless amount of things that they're actively engaged in. And those are published on the GCSD website monthly, and that link will take you to current and past reports. So with that, that will conclude my portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Gorham. I would like to now invite John Kiefer up with Kiefer's Insurance Agency, which I'm sure probably most of the people in this room, if you own a home, are very familiar with and know him. So I'm going to turn it over to him now.
And she's right. A lot of you are very familiar. I don't have a presentation per se. I do have some talking points I'll share with you. And the last one is about myself and my wife, Tony. We've been running the Keeper Insurance Agency here in town for about 24 years. We used to have a little office here in town. We downsized, work mostly from home these days. But the way insurance works with this is the insurance industry, they use models of how bad a fire will be in a given area based on fuel and whatnot. There's an organization, an insurance service organization, it's known as the ISO. They come out, assess a community's ability to suppress fire. Where's the fire hydrants, where's the fire departments, how's the staff, etc. They have a rating system of 1 to 10. 1, you live in Cement City. 10, you either don't have a hydrant or you're more than 5 miles from the local fire responding department. Groveland right now is at PPC 4 in most of Pine Mountain, which is really good. I have to live outside, top of Merrill, up on a ridge somewhere. We don't have hydrants, but we are within 5 miles. I'm a class 10. So be aware, if you're more than 5 miles, let's talk Hemlocks, the outer airport range, Clemens Road and such, they're class 10 because they're more than 5 miles, but they do have hydrants. Other factors to consider, and again, this is the insurance company looking at them, is where do you live? Are you on a hillside, built into a hillside, on top of a hill? How much fuel is around? Your trees, your shrubs, how far into the forest are you? Things of that nature all contribute to that. So you could be a class 4 or 5, but your rating or cost for insurance is going to be higher due to those other factors. ISO, I've been monitoring and trying to stay in contact with them. They're actually supposed to have been out here last October, November. It keeps getting pushed back. It is currently scheduled for April, I think it is. So if things change and the ratings change, guaranteed your insurance rates are going to change. Our house, it's not big, it's just a big cabin, 1,400 square feet, 1.5 stories. There's no steps to the house. We have a small staircase to the loft. If we had a hydrant, we're more than 1,000 feet from one, but if we had a hydrant, we would be a class 5. I'll just use that. We ran some scenarios with that, and I'll share with you, my fire insurance alone is almost $4,600. If I was a class 5, my insurance would drop 313%. So I would only be paying about $1,400, $1,500. So let's reverse that. If I'm a class 5 and we don't have somebody to service the hydrant across my driveway, and let's just say the fire department is no longer here, if that's what we're looking at, my insurance would triple. It would go up to 300%. It could be saving if I was a class 5. I have a client in a gated community down in Freeman, and I think it's south of Fresno. They don't have hydrants, but the nearest responding fire department is 27 miles away. They're paying approximately $9,000 just for the fire insurance. So if they had a hydrant, it wouldn't help them too much because you need somebody to service it. If you had just the fire department, they have tankers they can bring and try to help put the fire out. So for me, my wife Tony, we talked about this, and I'll share something else with you too. But if our insurance costs could stay, I'll just pick on that $1,500 one. I like that one. But if I knew that was going to go up 300%, I would eagerly contribute to keep our station funded, staffed, occupied, so it's always there. A scenario that I want to, well, it's not a scenario, it's something that actually happened. It is more than just firefighting they do for us. Lift and assist. You fall down. They're the ones that come out. The nearest other responding fire department or services is maybe Jamestown or further. And we all know it's a half hour to Jamestown and 45 minutes to an hour to Sonora. We had a neighbor have an accident, broke a foot, in the garage by themselves, spouse was in the shower. She was on the floor for almost 10, 15 minutes before she got a phone, was able to call a family member who called me. And my wife Tony and I went over. We couldn't lift her up, but got her covered. It's all cement in there. Gave her pillows, got her comfortable. I called 911. The guys were there in, I think, 6 minutes. And I had to go through the service system. Well, who are you? What do you know? Why are you there? So it's really important that we support what's going on here. So with that, I'll leave it. The other things, the cost of insurance. Some of you, I know a lot of my clients have because they're calling. California Unfair Plan is sending out letters. They have discounts available. They had them before, but you had to meet all of the requirements in order to get the discount. This year, they're offering the same discounts, but you can qualify for them individually. If you haven't got your letter, you're probably going to. If you don't, I've got the bullet points that you need to qualify at, and I'll have them out there for you. Get them to your broker, whoever's doing your CAL FIRE, if that's who you have. It could be up to 15%. Firewise Communities, Bob, where are you? Bob, he's the head of one of the Firewise Communities.
Point viewers.
Point Viewers, thank you, that's one of them. If you can join one of these communities, I believe that's like another 15%. And it's just a promise and a handshake that you're going to make your yard spotless. You're going to get rid of all the dead and dying bushes, all the dead trees, trim them away from your house. And that's worth it. And you're going to save your effort once you put it in for it. There you are. So if you're not in one or close enough to join one, become one. Get your immediate neighbors to start your own. It doesn't take a lot of time and effort. You can find community discounts online, talk to Bob, talk to the other communities that have that. It's worth the effort. So, thank you.
Okay, so now we are going to transition into the question and answer portion of tonight. We're actually doing pretty good on time. Did anybody fill out a question through the paper that they didn't want to read aloud that I can gather and read? Because if not, if you did, hold it up. No, okay. All right, so seeing no hands, what we're going to do is if you have a question, I'm going to carry a microphone around, and depending on who it's to, either the Chiefs or Pete Campa or Don Kiefer, we have a question. We'll start with this one. Can we go back and charge the resorts for their share of the fire protection cost?
The answer is no. They are located outside of our jurisdictional boundaries, so we have no authority to levy any type of fee or tax that we can count on being paid. We can bill them at an amount that we determine is appropriate for it, but we don't have any authority to condition. We didn't condition their development on paying a fee. That's the county's responsibility because the county has the land use authority. So the answer is no. The county could ask them to pay or be taxed on a voluntary basis. No, it's possible. And they've talked about it. You've heard, if fallen horse garage that talked about, establishing it for new development. So there was a requirement when they developed, and then asking the existing facilities to contribute. In reality, they could, and if they get an enhanced level of service, if they have faster response time, more people at another station, whatever it was, they might be able to cut their $1 million insurance down a little bit, but that conversation hasn't happened. So the short answer is no, GCSD can't service it.
Okay, testing, all right. See you first, so I'm going to you.
This is a question for the chiefs. I wrote, co-authored the first fire management plan for the Chaparral and the Palo Alto foothills. My question is really two questions. One, who does the fire vegetation management planning for this area? And two, what's your funding?
So yes, can you hear me? No.
Will they go too far away?
Yeah.
Way to the microphone.
It might be a bad.
Hello?
Sorry, I broke it. We'll all stay close to the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Cashy. I'm the fire chief for Groveland as well as Tuolumne Calaveras Unit and Tuolumne County Fire Department. So to answer your question specifically, it's a compilation of several different entities that participate. It would be the Resource Conservation District, the Fire Safety Council that pursue certain fuel modification requests in the area, as well as CAL FIRE ourselves that work on several projects. And this falls into CAL FIRE's Battalion 6, the Groveland Battalion. So we do a lot of work, not only out at the Crook VMP, but also around Pine Mountain Lake. And it's all part of our fire plan, which is available online.
How's your funding?
Well, if you're one of the local entities, such as a Fire Safety Council or RCD, the ability to put in for grants is pretty endless, and the opportunities are there. For CAL FIRE, our funding is fine, but it really comes down to the fact that it is several personnel hours intensive to accomplish that. And so, the history books of our agency will show you that several predecessors prior to my arrival here, Nathan, have been pursuing the same fuel reduction efforts over the last 50 years, and we are humans trying to combat Mother Nature. But I do think we made a lot of progress, and we'd love to share that fire plan or any of the work we've done with you.
Okay. I brought a change of batteries just in case this happened, and I think that was the solution. So I'm going to go to the back of the room. Oh no, I'm going to go to you. I saw you earlier. I'm going to you.
I also have two questions. One was for Chief Nathan in your response scenario. I didn't see anything about an ambulance service being part of the response team. And then for Mr. Kiefer, my question is, how do you get yourself from out of level 10 something lower when you're 5.2 miles away from the fire station, even though your entire structure is metal and concrete with sprinklers and across the street from the hydrant?
3 hydrants. So specific to the ambulance question, Nathan and I oversee the fire department, but we do not oversee the ambulance services for the county. That's what the Tuolumne County Ambulance Service. So in regards to response to emergency medical aids, there are more fire engines in the county. We train first responders in basic life support than there are ambulances. And so we can only provide you the information on our responses. But we don't oversee that section of the public service, and that's why we don't.
And you don't have an agreement with them to work with you?
Well, no, they work. It's a county ambulance service, so of course we work together. We don't need an agreement, but they are the transporting agency. But as far as their response standards and their times, it would need a representative from Tuolumne County Ambulance.
Are they just EMTs or paramedics?
No, there's paramedics on it, and that's one of the probably good clarification point in the difference there. So you folks have an engine staff with what we call basic life support training, which essentially means several life-saving measures other than the administering of intravenous type drugs or things like that, or medications that can save a life, that's where paramedics come in. They have a higher scope than they are on the ambulances.
Unfortunately, no. That beats me 2/10 of a mile. You cannot. If you're outside the 5 miles, and some of these companies are very particular, they'll road map it. It used to be as a crow flies. Now it's road map. You can have a brick house, like I said, live in Cement City, hydrant right outside, on-site stored water. You can't get out of it. For me?
So I have a question about occupancy tax. So the 120 corridor supplies a huge amount of occupancy tax to our citizens that come here, okay? Is the South County getting that? Or are they getting part of that? And if not, why?
I can't speak to the exact mix of how much is coming to fund their contract with CAL FIRE.
No, I'm talking about the occupancy tax.
No, I understand that. Yes, the county does receive the occupancy tax. It comes directly into them. It's considered a general tax, so they can't specifically dedicate it for a single purpose. They spend it for general government services, which includes law enforcement, fire, and they have a contract with the Tacoma County Visitors Bureau. The percentage of that money goes directly to them to fund their Visitors Bureau activities. How that, because we don't control that budget, how much they get and how they allocate it is a political decision. It's something that the Board of Supervisors decides on how it's done. The intent, I can tell you, the intent of the transient occupancy tax is to offset the cost of emergency services, impact on roads, all of those things that happen when you have more tourists coming and staying here. They need law enforcement, they need fire, they need to maintain roads. But again, it's a decision that's made by the Board of Supervisors, and it's not in the control of GCSD locally, because we can't charge the TOT, the county does. So we're just kind of a little bit at a disadvantage of how that money's spent, other than to politically lobby to suggest that they invest some of that money into the Groveland area fire department.
Okay, I'm just going to ask that we limit everybody's to just one question so we can make sure we get through, and then I can circle back around. And don't forget, you're going to have an opportunity after this to speak one-on-one with Pete Campa, the chiefs, and John Kiefer as well.
Good evening. I think everybody here will agree that we have to get some kind of funding to maintain the service that we're used to. However, I would like to see GCSD form an ad hoc committee to find out what we can do to get our sphere of influence larger so that the properties up country will participate in some sort of a payment. We have been subsidizing Evergreen Lodge, Rush Creek, Firefall, and all the properties up to Yosemite. We've got to figure out a way to get them to make a contribution. It's not fair to the businesses that are hurting, to the property owners that have been paying special assessments for years. I've lived here almost 40 years. We've had fire assessments, but they benefit by us paying. So I would really like to see an ad hoc committee to look into what resources we can do to expand the revenue pool.
Was that a question? I'm just kidding. Do you want to address that at all?
There's not a lot to address other than there's a process in law that allows us to be able to petition a third-party group of entity, which is LAFCO, that makes decisions about boundaries, and we can submit a request. We have to pay an application fee, we have to go through the process, LAFCO has to evaluate it and make a determination on whether those areas can be within the district boundaries or not. After the fact and like this, GCSD initiating that process would probably not be too favorable to them because they're getting it for free now. I mean, assuming. And so there's a process in law also that allows them to just vote no. We don't want to annex to GCSD. I don't know how that would go. It's certainly worth looking into. In reality, if you back up to when all of this went on, when the county rezoned all the property, when the county knew that there was going to be commercial resort development out there to support that, LAFCO would have said, who's going to provide the services out there? You don't have a fire station. But the county's response was, well, we do. GCSD, CAL FIRE, Forest Service, all of those guys are going to respond. It's not a true statement. It's something we've been fighting and trying to other than going to court on everything, we've been trying to get that point across. And we did with them putting the fire engine in our station for now. Again, that's super important that they keep it there. Because when the county says, yes, you can use your land for a resort, and allows them to build 100 rooms and invest tens of millions of dollars in their property, that commitment is forever. And the fact that the county has a fire engine here right now under a year-to-year basis doesn't give us a warm, comfy feel that 20 years from now, that engine is still going to be there. So that is our primary focus right now. Because of all the hurdles we'd have to go through to get them within the district boundaries, and then we'd have to negotiate with the county on a property tax exchange agreement. Right now, the majority of the counties are saying, we don't have to negotiate, it costs us too much money to provide services, other kind of services like law enforcement, so no, you don't get any property taxes. There's nothing in law that says they have to give us any, which means we would have to tax those people at a rate that covered not only what the property taxes fund here, but also the gap to be able to make those services available, because we can't just say, yeah, we'll take them into our boundaries and then we'll send our engine out there. We'd have to look at whether an engine is needed closer out there or whatever, and all of that expense would fall on their backs. We can't tax you to provide the service out there.
Someone already mentioned the TOT, which was not specific to any area, but was general tax throughout the county. What mechanism is there, if any, to assure that, if I see where this is going, we're going to be asked to provide more support, keep this thing open. What assurance is there that we can keep the money that we raise for the purpose that it's said to be for, and not just go as a general tax countywide?
Okay, that depends. So I'm going to go specific to the question if that's of GCSD. If GCSD levies some type of a tax or assessment on properties within its boundaries, because that's the only place we have jurisdiction, we are required by law to account for those funds separately, and those funds have to be dedicated specifically for the service that's provided. That's the difference between a general tax, which the county has favored because it's really a 50% voter approval, and that's the only thing they've been able to get through. When you do a special tax that's dedicated for a specific purpose, that's a 2/3 voter requirement. When you do a property assessment, where the property owners individually vote on it, that can be done as a majority vote. So if GCSD does it, and it would be, if we don't have the ability to levy a sales tax or a TOT tax under law, we have to stick to a special tax or an assessment. Those are the two funding mechanisms that are very specific to us. And again, we have to account for it and report publicly how that money is spent. And our goal with the transparency portal is to be able to show that money coming in, exactly how much we said we were going to charge, would be exactly the amount of money that came in and where it went. So that the guarantee is you've got an elected board of each election cycle, and they're charged with making sure that management does that correctly. And we have independent audits every year as well that make sure that happens.
Thank you for your presentations. As a follow-up to what you just said, on a simple arithmetic basis, have you or CAL FIRE assessed what it would be in terms of numbers of dollars per household in our region to make up the shortfall? $500 a house, $1,000 a house, what would that be? Have you guys got any kind of...
I like your numbers.
I thought so, but just in case, to give it something to start with.
Yeah, no, the hard part is that the math has not been completed, and as you know, we can do estimates, we can do rough estimates. The minute that I put it out there, it becomes gospel, it gets put in the newspaper, it's on my mother load, we're getting phone calls, you know how it goes. But I've been asked the question multiple times. It will be less than $500.
A year or?
A year. Yeah, no, not a month. A week. No, and I'm just giving you that because, I do want to at least put a cap on it. We've got 4,400 parcels that are in our district boundaries, and we've got over $1 million gap. But we're not trying to build another station at $10 million and have another $2 million of station expense and all of that. We are trying to fund that gap that we have, equipment replacement and the staffing costs to make sure that can last. That's the best.
You guys want to go fund me? I'll buy
Okay, so that's what, there will be discussion at our upcoming board meetings. I can't guarantee April, but we'd like to see a draft in April. That's where some numbers will start to come out and some methodologies, because it's got to be applied. Any funding that we talk about has to be applied based on either parcel size, land use, whether it's commercial. There's a lot of evaluation that has to be done under state law.
Again, thank you very much for putting this informative presentation together. I know we've talked about TOT. We know where our hands are tied, or the county's hands are tied. But I want to suggest everybody in this room attend the meeting on the 24th, March 24th, where we have our state senator here. She's the one that can break those walls or go find out why can't we allocate the TOT that we generate back to us for a larger percentage. I look at Peretti Road, these roads are supposed to last 15 to 25 years. I can't think of once when the county redid Peretti Road. And for those of us that drive it, it is crumbling. It is already an end of life. I've lived here and owned here for 25 years. I've never seen that road done. So here's an opportunity for us to get in front of that senator and say, what are you doing? We have Steve Griefer ahead of her. Steve, what are you doing to fight for us? We elected you. Let's see some action here. We hear a lot of things, but I need to see it. I live here. I breathe it just like the rest of you. So I hope you guys will be here on the 24th, starting at 4:30 to 5 as our 4th district supervisor, from 5 to 7 as our state senator. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then I have a little bit of an announcement, and then we'll break into the one-on-one with everybody. So you don't be afraid that you're not going to get your question answered if I don't get to you.
Roughly 1/3 of the call-out time, fire department told me, I think maybe a year ago, are for the resorts up the hill. And when there's a medical emergency, one truck is sent, I've been told this evening, and if there's active CPR, 2 trucks have to go. That's a $1.6 million per truck cost. So you're burning up 1.6 or $3.2 million pieces of equipment for a medical emergency, and they can't transport. I talked with Mr. Campa here 2-3 years ago about a fast response vehicle. You can send somebody's station wagon that costs $75,000 or something, brand new, up the hill with all the medical emergency equipment they need and save those $3.2 million trucks that you're burning up. It's a lot faster, and it's a whole heck of a lot cheaper.
Okay.
Excellent input. Those are things that everything takes funding. We still need the staff fire engine. However, we could have a different vehicle, and we've talked with Cal Fire about the possibility of having some type of rapid response vehicle. I've had them in other departments that have a lot of long runs and long times and difficult driveways and medical aids. They're costly to have a paramedic and the additional staff to be able to be on those calls, but there's certainly something that we want to, this is a community conversation, and these are the things that we need to hear with our board of directors at the board meetings, or to me, and I'll bring it to the board to have a conversation about that. If there's a higher level of service or a different level of service to provide, we need to analyze those things. And you're absolutely right. It's hard to see that engine roll that far away for a lift assist.
I have a question for one of the chiefs. Like many up here, I came from the Bay Area, and we had 6 engines in 6 minutes on scene. I've had a couple of house fires near me in the last few years, and I noticed the 4th one came in from Columbia. What's the run time for Columbia?
39 minutes. So it's actually a really good topic, more holistically when looking at it. So regardless of whether you're federal, state, or local government, to do this on your own in fire protection is just not going to, it's not going to work. You have to have automatic aid agreements. You have to work together. You have to provide support to each other. And what the discussion is tonight is specifically about the GCSD engine in the future of that. I think it is important to also note the progress with talking with the county and the county committing to putting a county engineer to limit those responses for the GCSD engine outside of the district, to relieve that for the county to take care of county jurisdiction as they should. And you've had that engine here. And I do think we need to be fair with our supervisors. They made some hard decisions on January 6th in regards to county fire department budget cuts, specifically cutting 6 positions and closing the Mono Vista engine. And your supervisor for your district specifically, if you watch that video, says that he would not support removing the county fire engine from Groveland. And so there's an acknowledgement right there of the person that represents you in understanding the need to have that engine here for that holistic approach, providing aid to each other, whether it be within the service area or within the county.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to say that I really applaud the Groveland Fire Services and CAL FIRE for what they do up here. I think they do a wonderful job. We would be lost without them, and it's not a service we can afford to lose. My only real concern is that I would like to see the funding done through some assessment or something that we guarantee our money stays here for that and doesn't go to the county for some other junk that doesn't, involve us. I'm willing to pay my share. It's like $40 a month if you do what you were talking about. It's not much compared to the alternative. So I'd just like to say that. I'd really like to see the money we put in stay here guaranteed for that.
Okay, does anybody have any burning question they feel like they need to answer? Oh, we're getting to, all right. So the last question I'm going to take, and I have a short announcement.
I'd just say that $5,000 worth of insurance versus $500 worth of maintaining our fire department, that's a no-brainer. I would be happy to cut our fire insurance in half and double our fire services.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to thank everyone again for taking the time to be with us here tonight. I know it was a lot of information, and we appreciate you sticking it out with us. When you walked in, you received a handout that is composed of an FAQ and some other information. There's a lot of good information contained there, and I highly encourage you all to take a look at it. We will also be posting the video from tonight's meeting on our website. We are now going to transition to the one-on-one portion of the meeting. If you have additional questions for any one of our presenters, they will be available around the room for the next half hour or so. And I want to thank you all again and have a wonderful evening.